Alright, welcome back to the lab. See, we've got our remote turned on. Got a new spool of solder, so I've been able to get a fair bit of work done on some various things. To start with, we've got a voltage regulator here that takes our 24 volts from our battery pack and knocks it down to 7.8 volts to run the main controller board, the packet radio, the LCD, and the logic for the motor controllers, which also use 24 volts through the motor controllers to run the motors. And then we also need the 5 volts off of this to run all the sensors, but we're not quite there yet. So back to here, we're testing our menu system. We no longer use a nano on here. We have completely integrated to the Mega and removed the other chip that we were using. Probably put this back in later on for another function. Right now, doesn't need it. So we're going to hook up our 24 volts to our regulator, and we're going to watch it boot. And then we're just going to put in the default passcode for now, which is 555, enter. Now we can check our job settings, and then if we hit enter, that'll go off autonomously to run whatever site we've entered with the parameters that we have entered. Parameters will include cutting height and number of passes. Right now that's not set up, but we will get to that soon. In order to do that, we have to have another piece of code finished first, which I'll explain in a moment. So we can go back with star, takes us to our main menu. We can go mowing, we can enter site number 11, enter, and then if we go to confirm, you can see we have site number 11. Go back, we'll go back to mowing, we'll enter site 81, enter, and if we go back, we see we have 81, go back, mowing, site number 5, enter, confirm, site number 5. So that part's all working. We just can't start the job yet because it doesn't have anything programmed into it for what to do for those sites. So like, for example, mowing, we'll go to 15, and then we'll confirm those settings, right? And if we hit confirm, it doesn't do anything because there's no code after this yet to tell it how to mow the site. So if we go back, now if we see the remote, remember before we could do it with the remote, we have no control with the remote anymore, even though the remote is on. Now if we look, we have option D. Instead of shut down, it's remote control. We can press D, and now the remote will work. Yeah, I fixed the gear spot, so it's not rubbing. This will end up being our programmer section. So what that'll do is we'll enter D to turn on the remote, and then this menu will change here pretty soon, and this will give us more options to select, and we'll be able to begin recording, playback, edit those settings. And what that'll allow us to do is mow the site manually with the remote. It'll record all the inputs for the site. So if we have, for example, a site right here, right? Let's move some stuff. We're gonna go back. Say this is our site, and this is our mower. So if we start here, and we mow an area, right? We're gonna be using our telemetry data from our wheel encoders to know that we're still where we need to be. And we can do our pattern, so on, so forth, etc., to mow the site. Come back, and then we'll end, right? And then we'll save that to memory. And then what we can do is we can essentially play that back. This is the same code we used with Crash to do the repetitive tasks for teaching him with his arm. Remember, in another video, we could open and close his hand, and it would read that data, and then it would play all that data back. and then we can save that under a site number into memory, and it'll remember that even after the power's turned off. And then every time we want to mow that site, we just got to make sure it starts in the same spot, and then hit enter, and then it'll mow that site. Now, things in the site, like the fire pit and the table, will get in the way. That's why we have our telemetry data from our bumpers and our ultrasonic sensors, and it will be able to adjust for things that are in the site. So if it's mowing this way, and it knows that there's an object there, it knows it has to go around it, but it also has a record, because it read that data, that it had to move, and it can bring itself back into spec with what the pattern is until it comes back. And if it's got to make a big detour, you can account for that too. So that'll be pretty cool to work on. And we're almost there. I think I talked about the voltage regulator. I gotta put a heat sink on that still. It doesn't get terribly hot, but it does get warm to the touch. And I worry that it might get super warm inside the case. So where are we at now? Aside from testing on a dirty bench, now we're at the point where we can install all of this crap into the case with the batteries. And then all I gotta do is run a data cable out for reprogramming it off the chip. And then we can put it back together, and we can start playing with it, and we can start mowing with it, and we can start developing the software that goes with this code that allows it to record and play back the patterns for the sites. Now, once we have that working, then we're going to go a step further. We're going to add GPS, and then we're going to see about using the GPS to make virtual fences for the individual sites. And then that will allow us to give another option where we can just set it down and it'll mow randomly with a pattern within the site, within the virtual fence. And eventually I'd like to get into doing like edging and other things too, but that's where we're at. I think I'm about done for the day. My fingers hurt. Stay spicy, folks. Keep tinkering.